I'd like to welcome everyone to today's session, the Scale session. Today, the intent or the purpose of today's meeting has always been to talk about the back end of the business, the systemization, the structure for growth. Today, I'm super excited because I've got Travis who's joined us from VidStep. And as I was just saying to the other guys, I've known Travis for a number of years. And he's always been in that space of innovating. How do you do things better? And VidStep is a company that uses video to a video platform to help systemize businesses. And they launched that. You can tell the story about the launch and the history and the ridiculous number of users that you have now and all those sorts of things. And then we might get into the rolling up our sleeves and talking about some key elements that these guys can use to systemize their business. So Trav, over to you.
Take it away. Yeah, good. Oh, welcome. Good morning. Firstly, a little bit about the story, as David mentioned. Yes, look, we have some technology, and it's turned into quite a significant business. But it was all born out of the need to service our own clients at the time, which I was in coaching and consultancy. And when we got to the topic of systemization for their business, it was just confusion. Right, people aren't clear on what that actually even means. What's a system? What's a process? What's a workflow? You know, there's a lot of misunderstanding. And then when we bring some clarity to it, to actually get anything built requires significant time and energy. And because it's so valuable, you know, we've got these businesses growing and the pressure's building, as I'm sure David's helping a lot of people do. It's something you can't not do. I mean, it's a barrier to growth. So it has to be done, but particularly when the business owner, when they're already so busy doing everything and operating everything and being responsible for everything, when could they possibly commit time to getting this done? Right. So that's essentially why VidStep was born, to make it really, really easy and remove a lot of that complexity and time, and bring some really cool innovation and video tech to making life easy for you guys. All right. So that's a bit of the background story. And today, look, I do have some slides. So I turned this presentation Brick Wall of Business. And this is just to really make it easy to understand what a business system looks like. The first question a lot of people ask is when to systemize business. And when I'm in a room of people, I actually do this. I have 2 bottles of champagne up the front of the room. All right, I sit one bottle of champagne over on the left-hand side. Now I get the other one and I shake the hell out of it. And I actually, I don't know what you call that wiry thing, but I take the wiry thing off and then I start pointing it at people. And people get really nervous. All right. And the question is, you know, we got 1 bottle of champagne over here. What happens when you uncork it? Everyone says it goes pop, right? And then what's going to happen over on this one when the one I've shaken, when I uncork that? And people's response is it's going to get pretty messy, right? Now that's a great metaphor for when you got a business sitting over here and it's plugging away and you're popping. Yeah, there's some pressure and release, but when you're actually focusing on growing a business, all right, and that back pressure is building, if you don't attend to some sort of structure, some sort of process or support around, enhancing and dealing with that growth, then absolutely, when you pop that cork, things are going to get messy. And don't tell anyone in the room. I actually swapped that bottle of champagne out with some water, so it's safe. No one loses an eye. All right, but they get the lesson, right? And then the question arises: well, okay, when should you systemize? Is it when you're growing? When after you're growing? When should it happen? And I know you're not tuned in and talking on this one, but the answer in the room is overwhelming, and it's now. We have to start now, right? Because you can't wait. You can't wait until it's too late. Otherwise, we're dealing with this mess. We're having to mop it up and try and backtrack and get control of it again. So when to start to systemize? Now, like literally after you get off this call, give it some thought and think, okay, what can I do now that will get me on this path? And the nice thing to know about systemizing business is it's not a project. It's not something that has a start and a finish. It's just a continuous habit, and business is constantly changing. You're introducing new software. There's always something going on, right? Peter, are you moving into a new premises there or something by the looks of it? Or sorry?
Yeah, we are moving to a new premises, yes.
Yeah. So there's a whole
So-
new sections of how to open to join up, and
Yeah. So from 600 to 1,500 square.
wow, okay.
Yeah, nearly double. Yeah.
All right. So things are always changing. So it's a habit, just like your bookwork. You know, we've always got to be on top of this. Fair enough?
Yep.
Right. Now the next one is why. And it's an interesting one because no matter what group of people I'm presenting to, whether they're small businesses, large businesses, trades businesses, you know, the last event I did on the weekend before last, it was all big burly tradies in a room. And when you ask people, why do you want to systemize your business? It's never about, you know, ego or money or fame. It's always about the heartstrings, you know, the emotion of why they went into business in the first place. And you know, sometimes we have team members in the room too. They're not necessarily business owners, but it's the same for them as well. I mean, why do they want to be successful in a career? And it always comes back to pretty much family, home and lifestyle, and wealth and security. All right. Now they're the outcomes of systemization and having a business or having a great career. And it's nice to actually reconnect with that, because those reasons are typically why people went into business for the first place. In the first place. But of course, we all know as business owners, as you grow a business, and you're covering off so much, it actually takes you away from those reasons. I mean, to have more time and lifestyle and money and, you know, more time with the family, like, are you crazy? You know, a business is never going to give you that. It's actually the reverse, unless you're working with David, or you're actually systemizing and getting on top of it, right? So, you know, if I'm sure, I know this is probably not the forum to do it, but if we go around and ask those questions, at least ask the questions for yourselves, or if you're watching this presentation later,
Yep.
you know, what are the reasons and the heartfelt core reasons why you would want to systemize your business?
Hey, Trav.
Yeah.
Normally, when I ask people this question, right, I have to frame it with business is a means to an end, because they come to us because they want to make more money or they want to work less. And I go, that's great, but why?
Yeah.
And we go through things like saying, well, you got to get your personal goals in order, because your business is actually a conduit that will deliver personal goals. But if you don't have personal goals, it becomes the end game. And that's why people end up working harder and for less, because they become loyal to delivering service to their clients, and they forget about the reason they went in the first place.
Yeah. It's interesting how we get sucked into that black hole. But yeah, absolutely right. And that's a great way of putting it, David. And I would challenge people to really get in tune with that, because those motivators drive you to get this done. And it reminds you each day, okay, right, I've got to improve that. I've got to work on that, or that frustrates the hell out of me, so I'm going to deal with that right now. As opposed to, you know, systemizing and creating processes as a distraction to me, and it's taking me away from, you know, day-to-day operations, so to speak.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So why very important. Now, I'm going to go through the steps that I recommend for basically how to go about systemization, and this is a very, very important first step, the foundations. And it's not that complex. All right. And this is actually a live client of ours at the moment that we're just helping to map out, and I've removed their name. But look, this is a really, really simple organizational map. It has nothing to do with people. Very important. Please remember that. Nothing to do with people whatsoever. An organizational map is the visual of your scalable business. All right. And this map is relevant whether you've got 5 people working for you, 50 people, 500 people. It doesn't matter. All right. And the simple breakdown that I'm showing here is, first of all, you know, business name, and then you need to identify your key departments. All right. Now, no matter how small you are, there's always at least 4 key departments. That will be the marketing, sales. You can bundle those into one. Some people separate them if they're larger. Admin, the operations, whatever it is you deliver, it's product, service, and then the management. So four key departments as a minimum. And even if you're just 3 people, okay? And then once you've got your department headers, you move through to identifying the roles that exist in that department. And let's just take sales. That's an easy one to pick on here. Even if it was just you as a one person operation, there is a sales manager, there is a sales executive, and there's probably a sales development type, BDM type role. You may be that one person and you may wear all those hats, but you've got to swap from sales exec at times to sales manager and look at what's the budget, what's the forecast, how are we tracking, right? Put your sales exec hat back on and say, the sales manager just gave me a kick in the butt. I'm not near budget this month, right? And you've got to get on with it, right? Yeah. But what this is doing, it's building the scalable business. This is important to understand because this is a footprint for you to grow into. And it almost makes it super simple and clear that this is also a recruitment plan. And you can start to pick off priorities as you want to take off one hat and put it on someone else. Well, who is that? And what's the most immediate demand? And so that's really the breakdown of the department and role titles. Simple stuff, I know. And then you do need to then open up these role titles and just pick off the key responsibilities of the role.
Can I just jump in, Trav, quickly?
Please. Yeah.
You talk about this, and we talk about this with these guys know we talk about organization chart. We call it a functional org chart, and it's all about hats. And when you ask the question, when at the start, my experience has been that if you're growing your business and you're looking to recruit people, and we always ask the question, when should I recruit? And the answer is not what everyone thinks it is, because people will argue, when I can afford it, when I'm quiet, when I can't afford it, sorry, when I'm quiet and I can't afford it, or when I'm busy and I can afford it. And you can argue either way on that because there's pros and cons. But the truth of the matter is you employ people when the right person's sitting across the table. And the only way to know when the right person is sitting across the table is by having these definitions in your head. And someone comes along and says, I can fill 7 of those boxes for you. And you go, great, I have a way of checking that you can, and you have a way of being trained into those boxes. So now we've lowered the risk of employment. So when we talk about systemization, I always say, do this first, work out your jobs, work out the functions in your business, then go to market and find people to fill those functions.
Wonderful. That's great. Actually, the event I was at recently, the person hosting that said, when do you recruit? Similar response, but it was you're always recruiting. You're always, when you're networking, looking for opportunity, your social media, your marketing, it's attracting people to your brand. And like David said, if you identify someone that's a possibility and you've got this map, even subconsciously, the gears are turning and where can this person fit in here? So that's wonderful, David. Yeah, great. When you've got a department and a role title and the key responsibilities, it almost acts as the job ad. I mean, it's pretty much laid out. You know exactly what you're dealing with here, all right? But what it's also doing is it's allowing us now to, sure, we can allocate a role and a key responsibilities to someone, but for us to be responsible business owners and responsibly delegate, we need to not only give them what they're responsible for, but how to do this. How do we need this done? Because if you're going to put someone in a role and expect they know this stuff because of past experience, or they might be the best at this, don't get me wrong, but if you put them in the role for your business, what you want and what you want in your business is totally different than they've done anywhere else before, all right? So we've got to be really clear now on, if we want them to do brand management, what does that mean? All right, and can a single process arm them with the right knowledge and how to, or perhaps it's multiple processes that construct some sort of workflow. All right, cool. But by the way, this single, I'll get to this in a minute. This diagram represents the business system. All right, the single business system, and we'll touch on that a bit more. Any questions so far? We good? That's pretty basic, right? Thumbs up, simple. Yep. if by any means in this presentation something gets complex, pull me up on it because it's not supposed to be complex. All right. So next, once we've really identified that the foundational piece, we can start to build our brick wall. And this is really the metaphor for this presentation. All right. Now, has anyone done any workflow mapping? Used a Lucidchart or anything? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. I should have brought some pretty pictures, David. There you go. I need to share that out as part of this presentation, perhaps in a pack. But look, basically, when you come to using something like Lucidchart and you start mapping out your workflows, what I suggest you do is break it down into what are called swim lanes, and I prefer the horizontal line. Each swim lane can represent a department, and we're just talking high level here. And you've already got your departmental map, so you know what you're dealing with. Okay. And you know, if this was the sales department, or probably marketing, let's say marketing, right? The marketing department, we could go through, and each brick here represents an individual process. Now, I'll get clear on what a process versus a workflow means. A process is a single task that you need someone to do with a definite start and a definite end. And it's a very small element, and it's step-by-step instructional. Here you go, 5 steps to getting this done. That's an end-to-end process. Now, if it's marketing, that might be, you know, placing an offer on, I don't know, Facebook, let's say, right? There's an ad and an offer. That's a one process. Now, the next process is bringing them across to a website and filling in a form. Okay. Then the next process is whatever that sequence continues to be, right? So as you can see, we've got chunks called processes, and then when we link them together in a sequence, that's essentially creating the workflow. Simple, right? We can point on our workflow diagram what points to what, and are there any decision points, and we can start to get real fancy with this, and perhaps you know, there's certain points in one department workflow that points to another. Maybe it needs to get checked in, or there's a possible sales conversion here, or maybe it waits till the end of the marketing sequence and then converts into the sales department. Who knows? But we can get fancy with where things point to. But essentially, we're building this brick wall approach, department by department, process by process, and what processes then link together to construct workflows. Is that cool? All right. What this also does, by the way, because we all love software and technology, right, is you can start to identify what areas can be automated now. You know, what sequences can we remove some human out of and put some automation in? Because a big mistake I make, particularly when I work with some of the bigger companies, is they go out and make decisions to take on new software, and rather than really getting clear on their human-centric business and how they function as a team, and making the selection to choose, making the right selection to choose the technology that fits that, they'll go and choose a technology and sort of mold their business to fit the software. And that's the totally wrong way to go about things. All right. So once you've got this, then you can make some informed decisions on what best technology suits as well. All right. Cool. So we've done organizational mapping. We've mapped out also our processes and workflows and our swim lanes. Nothing too complex so far. It's all good. Good. All right. And then we come to talking about system, singular. All right. And look, I often upset some experts when I say this, but there is no multiple systems in a business. At least by my methodology, treat the business as a single system, an ecosystem. All right. That brick wall approach, broken down into departments, broken down into processes. They're the building blocks of the system. And when you interlink processes, it creates workflows. It really is as simple as that. Okay. And also setting a context of single ecosystem when it comes to a team, it creates a lot more team mentality, you know, together with one type thinking, because there's a start point and an outcome for the client, and everyone is responsible for a certain element of it. And if the outcome's not great, you don't point the finger at one individual or one team or department. It's collectively we're responsible for it. All right, David, just interesting to ask on that one, because you're an expert in this field as well. It's the sort of the Kaizen type stuff. What's the take on that, on that methodology?
Well, often we will break down into individual systems to isolate function.
Yeah.
The way you described it was bricks in the wall. The swim lane approach is super interesting because it allows us to cross departments and say, well, the marketing people do this piece, and then the sales people do this piece, and then the delivery people do this piece. The idea of having one system makes a lot of sense because in the end, the business measures profit. And if the profit ain't there, it's going to be something broken in the system. And as you said, if we have systems, it's a bit isolated. And I often find people say, oh, it's the marketing department, they provide crappy leads. Or it's the sales guys, they're not closing sales. Or it's the delivery, we used to, we used to call delivery the anti-sales department because they'd always change things because they say, you can't sell at that price. But I think this idea of one system is really important for the owner, because we're sitting here and some of these guys are sort of just venturing into this pace of systemization. And Pete, he's taken over this whole section of the business. So he's looking at it going, oh, this is perfect for what I need right now. Because my mindset has always been everything in a business has to be systemized, right? Because if it relies on you, relies on me, that's high risk, okay? So the Kaizen principle, and you said it earlier, you said systems isn't a project that finishes. Systems is a mindset saying, how do we turn this into a workflow? How do we, because you're talking about what I call the baton passing, okay? And often when we've got two different people working on one project, it's easy to have a poor connection. So the baton doesn't get passed properly. And inevitably it happens between marketing and sales and delivery, where the marketing people generate leads online, as an example, and the quality is low. But it's not just low quality, it's just that there's low buyer intent at this point in time. And salespeople are saying, well, these leads are terrible compared to the referrals that I've been getting in the past. So I think this idea of one system is important. I think for the guys today, what we're looking at is we're saying, well, if the business is one big system, I think a mutual friend of ours, Marshall, used to talk about, there's 3 levels of flow charting in a business. You call it the bird's eye view. You should be able to create your business workflow in one workflow. And that's the bird's eye view or the management view, right? And that's saying, well, we have to find clients in a certain market. We have to educate them. We have to convert them into clients, and then we deliver a product, and then they pay us. So it's like 4 steps, okay? And then as you move down to the next level down, you get the detail. And that's the middle view, or what he referred to as the management view. And then you've got the nitty gritty, which is the how-to manuals, which is the worm's eye view. And that's the bottom end, which is, this is how you log into the system. This is what you type into the software. And this is how we make things happen. So saying it's one system is a great way to look at it. Yeah,
great. And just going back on that, the organizational mapping, bird's eye view, that middle level detail is the workflows and process map. And now we're in the nitty gritty here with, well, what are the individual processes, which we'll get to momentarily. All right. And look, this is just a bit of a snippet of the interface of the VidStep product that we built. And basically it allows you to plug in those department titles. Every business is going to be different, of course. And when you hit a department, it's just going to bring up all your process topics. And we can create sequences out of these and all that. And I'll show you what one of these processes looks like shortly, but it's that easy. And if it's not even video based and it's document based, it can live here, but it's the one central resource that, but for your team to go to when they need to know anything. And not even for them to go to, it should be available, and that's the way it's been built, to be available when they need it, in the moment they need it, in the place they need it. Okay, if they're stuck on a piece of software, the instructions should live there. If they're not sure how to greet a client, or it needs to be there, or they're not sure how to use this tool, it should be in a toolbox as a QR code. It needs to be available to them in the moment and place they need it. Because I can tell you 2 things. If they have to read it, they won't, and if they have to go find it, they don't. All right, that's 2 things I've learned in 15 years of doing this for people. Okay, they'll just make it up, and then no matter how much time and energy you put into this, If they're not using it, it's a failure. All right. So hence why we had to build this tool.
The definition I heard that I loved the most was a system has to be easier to use than not to use.
Great.
Because if it's easier to use than not to use, it'll get used. If it's easier to not use it, it won't get used.
Great. And look, a couple of points here. Software tools. I mean, people get caught up with this whole software technology and refer to that as a system. And it feels like when you bring software into a business, like that's the major part of the way you function as a business. All right. But it's a false perception. When you really look at how your business functions, and if you had to list out every little thing that happens during a day of operation in your business, I'd be guessing 95% of each thing that happens in the day is human-based, and probably 5% is software-based, even though it doesn't feel like it. All right. Products, look, you know, all this AI and all that, it's great, but it's not going to put anyone out of jobs for the time being, at least anyway. All right. So we've got to really focus on the human-centric business, and that's what mapping out and systemization is really about. A couple of tips here: determine your quality. You don't need to be the best quality in the industry. That might sound ridiculous, but you've got to know your market. It's no point McDonald's selling, you know, $25 hamburgers. They're going to go out of business tomorrow. They know their market and they know the level of quality they need to deliver to that market. So really, really understand that. And when you engineer your content, you've got to engineer it to that point, right? So that David can help you understand your market segment, I'm sure. And then once you understand that, it's really the name of the game is optimizing. So getting better at customer appreciation. I'm not sure is that getting cut off there. At least on my screen it is. So you're getting better and better at how your clients feel about dealing with you, and then minimizing the variation in their ongoing dealings with you. All right. Are we good for time, David? I'm just going to give a quick little minute.
You got another 30 minutes, 29 minutes.
Fantastic. Because I'll share my experience here. I don't know where everyone's from here, but I used to be from Melbourne. I moved to Brisbane. Love my coffee. So when I come to Brisbane, I've got to find a good coffee, right? Hey. So I go to the first cafe and it was awesome. I'm like, holy crap, you know, Melbourne, not the best in the world for coffee. It was really good. But unfortunately, I went back there the next day and it was pretty mediocre, different barista, you know. So certain things happen here. They've set an expectation and then I expect to get that the next time I go in there, but I didn't. Right now, I've got a bit of a trust level with them. They can do a 10 out of 10 coffee, but I don't get it every time. So I thought, and this is a true story, by the way. I tried another cafe. Now, their coffee wasn't as good as the first one I had at the other cafe, but it was probably a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Okay. Went back there the next day, 7 or 8 out of 10. Every day I went back there, same. Right. Now, that other cafe can deliver a 10 out of 10. I know they can, but I'm not sure what I'm going to get every time I walk in the door. So where did I end up having my daily coffee? The one that was consistent. All right. Yeah. Because trust, I know what I'm going to get, you know, I got to know them. And because they've got a stable datum line, you could say, they've got a stable delivery, they're ripe for improvement. Because if they put a little bit more coffee in or a little bit, you know, or better temperature, and they tested it, now it's either going to go up or down by client response. But if this other company's all over the place and they change something, you know, less sugar, whatever, then they've got no idea what's working, what's not. All right. So does that make sense? Consistency is the name of the game here, minimizing variation, and of course moving towards optimizing customer appreciation.
Yeah, it's just when you say that, I think about, you know, people go to restaurants and they always go to the same restaurants and they always order the same food. It works really well as long as they get what they expect, but the minute the quality changes, it's like, we're done. We're not going here anymore. So it's the same as the coffee story.
Yeah, very good. All right, let's move on. Now, look, I spoke about technology, and we do that as part of the service at Midstep because it's, you know, we specialize in the human-centric business, but when it comes to optimizing and bringing in automation, definitely, that's just an example of, you know, a part of someone's tech stack at least. All right. And we're very big on best in breed, smaller technologies rather than one big ERP or, you know, some behemoth piece of technology, which is trying to be everything to everyone, and it doesn't often work out that way. And they're hugely expensive, and they, you know, the implementation costs go on and on. And the thing with this too, it's quite easy to swap things out and bring a new tech in and keep moving forward, being better and better. All right. So anyway, there's some tips there. Some really cool tools actually. Metricool, if you've never seen that, to run your socials and advertising. Yeah, there's a really cool product called VidStep. Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah. All right. All right. Process. Everyone's used to seeing these documents and pages of information and yada yada yada. Right. So I'll admit, I hate reading things. I mean, if it's more than a paragraph, I'm out, right? And David knows, he tries to give me information on what we're doing here on calls and things, and I'm like, what are we doing today, David? You know, I'm really visual. And if you know, you probably do, about your learning styles and the way people like to receive information, then most people are visual. And they like to receive content in a kinesthetic way. So no point putting a video together to demonstrate a process and you're sitting there talking about it like a newsreader. You want to show it happening, right? So demonstrate it. So it's like apprentice first day. Hey, I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to show you how to do this, right? Video the action happening. Do it in 2 or 3 minutes tops. And that's one visual kinesthetic element of what they need to know. Right, now we've got to convert it to a functional instruction. And this is really important. This is not a static piece of training. So on-the-job learning is the best learning. Right, if you want to argue, let's go. But look, training's great. And I know training, big emphasis on training. But when you really stop to think about what training is, it's an upfront theoretical moment in time. They're talking about things that you're going to go and do, right? And then when you close the laptop or close the training room door and walk out and you're in the big bad world now, it's all based on memory. You got to try and remember what the hell you're trying to do. All right. And that's the failure point. And that's where people start making things up and deviating and whatever. So if you've got these small snippet instructional process pieces to support them and it relates to what they've already been trained to do, all right, then you're on a winner. You've almost got that, dream pie in the sky turnkey business. So taking you through one of these instructions is, yes, we've got a video that plays. The single video in VidStep allows you to break it down into individual steps within the instruction. Each step can have a title and each step can be explained. Now, if you hit a step, this is a still image, by the way, but if you hit a step, you can tell the software how to function, right? Because if you're doing this live and you might have dirty hands or whatever it is, the step can play and pause and wait for you until you acknowledge you've done it. Or it can repeat over and over. Okay, I'm getting it done, I'm getting it done. And again, you acknowledge you've got it done and you move to the next step. Or it can, if it's fairly simple, it can just play through in its entirety for you. But it's designed to be at the pace that you're actually completing the instruction. Does that make sense? So it's literally like having you there training this new team member holding their hand, yeah? Okay, so that's that aspect, and that's the top part of the VidStep. Pretty cool stuff. Oops, what have I done? Goodness. Now, the other layer to this, very importantly, is the attached resources. I don't know why, but we're one of the very few products that's video first, and you attach the written information to the video rather than most products are document first, then you can put some videos to it. But anyway, you can attach resources there. So any, policy documents, safety information, recipes, whatever it may be, right? You can attach your written information to that and they can reference that once they've got the instruction. The other thing that's very important to have is if you're demonstrating this video and you say, hey, log in here, use this tool, pick up this hammer, whatever it is, all right, whatever. you list all those ingredients, materials, tools, products below here. And that's an immediate link to not just the software, but the exact URL where you want them to log in, the invoicing paging, or whatever it may be, or they need to purchase this, whatever this is, this plain white sheet, because that's the one we use for our photocopier, otherwise it jams up. So you can actually have them reference and source or learn more about everything you're talking about within the instruction. Important element. And a little bit, oops, doing it again, David. Okay. And a little bit by stealth, this comments and shares and likes and like, we all know what that is, and we've all been trained. Thank you, social media. We're all happy to do that now. We're not afraid, right? But just a show of hands, does everyone know what continuous improvement means? Is that anyone? No. Okay, cool, David. So if we capture this how-to information right now, that's a moment in time. That's where we're at right now. And as we all agreed earlier, business is constantly changing. So this should get better and better. Team members will probably stay. Step 6, why do we do it that way? That sucks. There's a much better way, or there's a better software, or hey, I found a new tool that's half the price but does twice as good a job. You need those pieces of information to come back in, because that's the way you as an invite it as well, encourage it, get your ego out the way. Some business owners get caught up in, well, I know, and this is the way I want it done. Well, sure, but allow improvement to show itself. So that's the way it's done. It's really, really easy. The feedback comes in. You as the author of the content can go, well, that really makes sense. Change step 6 or whatever it may be. Click publish, and all of a sudden it's back out to the team and notified. Here's an update. So that's what would normally take probably a month, maybe 2 in typical continuous improvement programs for traditional methods, can happen in 30 seconds.
I'm just going to jump in here quickly, Travis, because I suppose people are absorbing a lot. I've picked up a little element here, and you've thrown in the whole incremental improvement, the Kaizen component. But I think the biggest issue with systems is they go out of date from the minute they're published. And this is the problem when people say, I've got a business system, I've documented it, it's somewhere sitting on a hard drive. And what you just described is a mechanism where people either use this or don't use it. And even as the designer of this particular step in the process, if people aren't opening this and using this, I'm going to know. So if someone says to me, David, how do you do this ordering instruction thing? And I go, well, did you look at the video? Can you just tell me? Well, obviously the system is harder to use than not to use. So there's something wrong here. And the incremental improvement requires feedback. You can't improve without the feedback loop. So I think whether you do it mechanically through documents or whether you do it through a system like this idea of the constant loop is how we get a system to actually be alive and moving. So it should never be static. Yeah,
wonderful.
Can I just check in with everyone? What's resonating with people so far? Because I know we've only got about 15 minutes left to go. What's been most useful? Does anyone have anything that's resonated with them so far? Maybe we'll just go around the screen. I usually say around the room, the metaphoric room, and just get everyone to chime in. What's resonated with you so far? What's been most helpful? And Kate, we'll start with you.
Oh, thanks. Well, just I'm a very small business, so a lot of this is above my level, but just doing something to systemize is a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hoping, because Travis said, am I keeping this really simple the whole way through? Because to me, it's not whether you should systemize or not, depending on size. It's a matter of when will you start systemizing. Because without the system, what we're relying is on your memory. And that constrains most people to just stay small. They just haven't got the bandwidth to manage anything bigger. So great.
Any growth plans on the horizon, Kate? You thinking of?
David, do I have growth plans?
You know the answer to this. See how she does that?
Yes.
Yeah. Kate's terrified because we've talked about the future and she's looking at it going, I really don't know how to get there. And I'm saying, you don't have to work out how to get there. You just have to work out what it's going to look like when it's finished. And then the path will appear. And so this system stuff's timely because Kate's going, well, I don't know how to get there. And you're saying, well, you need systems. She's going, well, I'm too small. And in her mind, she's grappling going, well, we need some systems. So there's a couple of things in here that I could implement.
Yeah.
And this is where it starts.
Yeah.
So
chip away, little pieces at a time. Yeah.
awesome. Pete, let's hear from you.
Yeah, for me, it's the same. So sometimes you don't have to think if you're too small or too big. It's just going with the flow, I reckon. So it's you start from 1 and 2, 3. Now we are 8. I think the best thing is to try to find the link to pass the information from one people to another. That's a more important one. You know your business. You know some people have 10 years of experience, 15 years, to pass it to a new one. So that's the link that must be regularly reassessed and do it properly. You know what I mean? You just take a new one and put it there and say that's what you have to do and that's it. You know, it's you have to be more precise what you want to do, like pass the information correctly, and maybe to do that you have to write some procedures. Sometimes you think, oh, I'll just explain to you once and that's it, done. But as you said, people can't focus on one lot of things at the same time. So they just have to be small procedures attached to it, written procedures, I mean, and they can go through it from time to time. That's the best thing to do, I reckon. That's what we start doing, and that's what we think is the best way to go, is just to try to write some small procedures in A4 pages with pictures, as you say, pictures attached to it and something like that. So you can pass this 10 years information in a book or a spreadsheet or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think what Pete's basically saying is if we're going to have to explain it once, I might as well record it so then I don't have to
do it properly. Yeah.
And I think a lot of us say, well, I don't need to do that because I'm small.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I was talking to Travis about at the start is when we're small and we have 2 or 3 great people in our team, it's awesome. But if we don't document what they're doing and they leave, we lose a big chunk of our business momentum.
That's it. Yep.
So it's not about, I don't need to train my people. They know what they're doing. It's a question of how risky is your business when the IP is stored in people's heads. Okay. And as we scale, it's not about we're going to get rid of this person or keep this person. We don't know what's going on in their world. And sometimes people leave because they find a new fandangled love for coffee in Brisbane, but we live in Melbourne, or it could be something else. The point is, if we don't have the systems in place, we just take 3 steps backwards in our business and we go back to base 1, and it's risky. So if we start by saying, well, anything we do that's repeatable process, we record, put it somewhere in a system, document, flowchart, I don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
We're starting to think systems. And then the other thing is when something's broken, because as you talked about with the incremental improvement, if I make adjustments to a standard, I can change the standard. If I make adjustments with no baseline, it's very random and ad hoc. And that coffee example you gave was great because I think most people have had that experience where they've had inconsistent service.
Just briefly on that, I just want to be clear. Everyone already has a business system. It's just you're doing it every day and it's unconscious. So all I'm suggesting to you is make it conscious so you actually know how you do it. And if you do that, your business is worth 10 times what it is right now, right? Because I know this for a fact because every business I ever start, I systemize the hell out of it, even though it's just me, right? And I sell them for big money, all right? So if you think about what is the outcome here, we're all in business to make money, whether that's selling or growing or whatever it may be. But this is you can't not do this to get to that stage. It's just something you can't skip.
Yeah, awesome. Annette, let's just quickly hear from you.
Yeah, sure. This is quite relevant for me. I did do a bit of a flow chart just the other day, sort of trying to think of my client's experience, and it was the bird's eye view level though, Travis. So I'm finding this really interesting. Certainly I have a background in a previous career where all the processes are very strictly laid out and need to be followed. I like the idea of the video. I think I'll be starting with small steps, but yes, thank you. It's really helpful.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
David, this is something we can share because that's often the question now, where to start. And I can give some suggestions, your pain points, your frustration, any leakage, loss, what's distracting you as the owner, what's distracting you from income or growth generating activities, what pisses you off. But the good one is, like Annette pointed out, is the customer journey map. What the client's experience. So no matter what's going on behind the walls of your business, if they're getting a great experience, they'll love you and you'll get more and more business. So that's a good place to start, mapping out just 10 key points, high level, bird's eye view of customer journey map, and systemize the hell out of each one of those points, create your processes.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Great. All right. Anything else we can help with, Dave?
Well, if there's any specific questions right now, we might sort of open up to those, or if not, I've got a few.
Yeah.
Anyone else still want to raise their hand? If not, we'll jump in. This interests me a lot, right? Because when we talk about systemization, everyone says, all right, you've convinced me that I need to do it, but I really don't know where to start. And I think what you've touched on here with the customer journey map is there's probably two things. I'd go one step back to the organization chart that you described before. And I often ask people, I say, don't design it based on who you are today, design it based on where you want to be in the future, because the functions shouldn't change a lot. It's just the number of people that are doing those functions. So it's just literally saying, well, in 5 years' time, if I want to be at point B, what are the things that should be functional blocks within my business for that to occur? That's the first part. The second part then is, now that I know, I'm priming myself for recruitment, okay? Because you said another thing which is really key is we should always be recruiting, okay? And to always be recruiting, the question is not, should I employ this person? The question is, can they add value to your organization structure? So can I actually engage with them and can they produce value, okay? So that's the back end. And now you've talked about the customer journey map, which is really the next piece. Okay, saying, all right, so now we know roughly who or what functions we have in our business. I've got my radar on. So if someone shows up in my world that looks like they could backfill some of that, I'll be talking to them. Now let's go to the front end of the business and say, well, customer journey map's really important because this is where the money comes from. Okay, so we look at any business and 9 out of 10 people in business, if you ask them what they want, the answer is we need more leads. Okay, we need more leads. And it's like, are you sure? And they go, yes. And you go, great, go find a marketing company and get them to generate leads. Oh, we did that and it didn't work. Well, what happened? The leads were garbage, or they couldn't produce enough, but really it's never that they need more leads. That's just the bright, shiny object. Okay. To me, often most people are not managing the leads they have. So they don't have what we call lead nurture in our world. So they don't have they got a leaky bucket. And so the customers they get, they either are very inefficient in their conversion. So there's a lot of people that disappear. Or once they do sign them up, they can't hold them for very long. And, that old philosophy of it's 6 times more expensive to get a new client than it is to get an existing client to spend more money with you. Well, when you talk about customer journey, we're talking about two things, how they get into our business and how long they stay with our business, I'm assuming, right? So this is a great place to start.
And like the cherry on top for what you said, David, is just remember what you do, even though you say you got your own spin on it and all the rest of it, what you do is a commodity. Most people can get it anywhere else, very similar, all right? So the commodity, the product, the service, that's not how you get clients. It's their perception and the way they feel about doing business with you, all right? Look, a quick example, that event I just recently did, Gold Coast, went to some fancy hotel, great rooms, all the brilliant, and all great advertising. I get there, room wasn't ready, late to check in, all the things added up. And I'm like, I'm never going to go back there again, right? The room's the commodity. They're marketing the room, but it's the experience of going there that makes me want to go back. And it was a poor experience.
Yeah.
Right. So nail those pieces. Airlines. You fly Jetstar, or we know this, right? They're all planes. They're all a seat on a plane, right? They're all very similar, but it's the experience you use in the company that makes the difference.
Yep. So when you talk about the customer journey map, really tuning in on that experience is the key element to differentiation.
Yep. and what processes support excellence in delivery.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've talked a little bit about systems. We've talked a bit about first steps and where to start. What's the next thing that these guys should be doing when they get off this call?
Yeah, David, look, I'll share a few of these pages, but it's really just being kind to yourself and not thinking, don't get overwhelmed and don't think you got this big project on your plate. It's just like, maybe schedule 30 minutes a week in your diary. That's not unreasonable to ask. And just quietly sit down and think about your week and like, what didn't go right this week? What frustrated me? What could we have done better? Or, hey, the client wasn't happy with this. Ask a few of these questions and then just decide on what action will I take next week. Just one process. Optimize the process. You don't want to, if you've done it poorly, you don't want to say, okay, I'll document how I did it, right? You really want to work out what's the best way to do it, document it, and do one a week. And sure enough, a year later, you've got a whole bunch of these processes and it seems to get quicker and quicker. But you just got to, I suggest you just right now choose your battles, because we know how busy you are and how much you've got on your plate as business owners, and just got to choose your battles. And I'll share the last 3 pages of this, Dave, if you could help me do that, mate, and we'll give them, possible start points to consider. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'll do, Trav, is if you can send me the sheets you want to share, I'll put them into our members portal with this recording as well. And I'll let these guys know so they can get access to them from there. I feel like there was a couple of sort of start points, and one of them was to decide how are you going to document your system. You can do it on a Word document to start off with, right? It's literally just a flow chart, and sometimes a flow chart is just a series of arrows with boxes. You can use something like you mentioned, Lucidchart. What I'm concerned about is people get bogged down in the technology of the software, and what you said is just pick your battles, pick one thing in your business that is something that is repeatable and irritating, and just work on how do I create a process. So for us, we don't use VidStep, we use Google Docs, and literally there's a document for each process. And if it has to be a video, I'll just do a YouTube video and stick the link in there. But it's a starting point. And I think, sometimes people get sort of waylaid, they go, oh, we need to work out which system to use. I think what you said before is right. You just look at your business and you say, what are the things that we do on a regular basis? And probably the most common thing is taking inbound inquiry. And what do you do with inbound inquiry? And how do you convert that from a lead into a presentation? And then from presentation to a sale, and from a sale to an onboarding. Okay. And then if you're offering a service delivery like a net, it's going to be, well, what is the program? And how do I get people engaged? So is there a step 1, life raft, we call it? And then how do they go through? With Pete, they've got a very specific process for how they manage their sales team. They go out and find clients, they try and sell them one product, and they get into a routine of calling them on a regular basis. That's their business. For Kate, very sort of different again. But I think, like, if you think about it, it's going to be what's bottlenecking you. Because I always look at this old 80-20 rule. There's going to be something in your diary that annoys you that you have to do it because it's just low skill and low fun. And I'd say that's the first thing that we systemize. Now, for some people, that's going to be bookkeeping. But for other people, it's going to be checking my emails every day because 90% of them are garbage. And I just wish I could have a way to get someone to isolate those. So it can be anything, right? The idea is to get into a system mindset and then just start saying, how do I systemize it? So either I follow that or I can hand that over to someone else. Anything else you want to add to that, Trav, as we close?
Yeah, just a quick one. This map, which we do this with people on a session, it takes no more than 1 to 2 hours to get to this, right? We use a product called Xmind. There is a free trial. Normally you can get this done within the free trial period. You never have to use it again, right? But it is a cheap product to use. If you want to do some workflow stuff, I tend to pay for that. Lucidchart is a really, really cool product to use for that.
Yep.
And of course, I want the full learning experience, all the factors. So I don't use Document for processes. Obviously, I use VidStep. That's why we built the product. So that's obviously my recommendation for the way you produce process content. But I'd nibble away from it at both ends. Any processes you need to build from the detail end, and then from the top here, what do you want to start mapping, and just work your way through it. Yeah,
awesome. I think we're coming close to the hour. So unless anyone's got any specific questions, We might wrap it up there. You've given some really specific advice, which is awesome. I think for most people, you know, that idea of where do I start? How come, you know, systems is very nebulous for a lot of people, and they sort of get the idea they need to systemize. But when you say, great, let's go, you got 1 hour. They go, oh, okay. And sometimes I see it on a to-do list, systemize my business. And it's like, yeah, that's not a to-do list item. That's a mindset, that's an attitude. So I think if everyone on this call commits to just picking one thing and literally get off this call, spend 10 minutes and say, is there one thing that I need to systemize right now? And if it's the organization chart, that's it to me. To me, that's a non-negotiable. Whenever we start people in our program, we say 5-year vivid vision. Number one, what's the end result look like? And then number two, what does that organization look like in terms of functions? And then we sort of put it to bed and say, that's now in your subconscious. So as you meet people and as you talk to contractors, you can work out whether they fit into your vision. So guys, thanks very much for your attendance. Travis, thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Great.